Hello, hello, hello. I come to you today as a goddess. I'm not being funny. I got this goddess gown on. I got this from Dubai. I never ever wear. I've never actually really just worn it, right? But I will tell you, it was a souvenir. But this thing is like not a souvenir for myself. It was just something I wanted, and I was thinking I'm gonna use it at some point, and I've never touched it. But it is beautiful, and I think it's like the coverall you see the women in the mall with in Dubai. And they have their regular clothes underneath and they walk around in these things. And it's a robe. It goes all the way down, right? It's very, very nice. Anyway, I come to you today as a goddess, right? And I got a beautiful little hair clippy to match. And nobody cares, but I'm sharing anyway. And actually, I got this off a wedding site. And they were like, wedding. I'm like, whatever. I wear this thing like every other day. And I usually wear it on one side of my head. I think it's cute. Nonetheless, I'm not even here to talk about none of that, right? My goddess gown needs to be buttoned. There we go. Go Saints. Nonetheless, so what I'm talking about today is a phrase that popped in my head a little bit earlier, right? Because this phrase is super important to me. Because it's kind of like one of those things I live my life by. What was the phrase I said? I do not want to be bitter, but I also do not want to be in denial. So how do we accept uncomfortable truths, forgive ourselves for those uncomfortable truths, and then move on with that information without it skewing our overall view in that particular area? I don't think it's possible. It's not. It's just like how you learn a pot is hot by touching it. You learn that gravity works by falling down on the ground. Is like, so it's like, it's not that you're bitter about gravity, but you're like, I know what gravity do, right? So that's what we want to get. That's what we want to get with these things in our lives, right? Then at some point you just think, I got to get on with my life, right? When it comes to certain things, you're like, I got to get on with my life. I do not want to be in denial, but I also do not want to be bitter, right? What I find the primary case or the primary cause of most bitterness comes from someone believing that something should have gone a certain way and it didn't go that way. And then so now they see a real specific person, place, or thing to blame for that thing not going that way. And then it's like long-term bitterness and it goes on forever, right? So this is the thing. What I notice about a lot of people, if they are in some sort of denial about a specific topic, let them be. Some people are doing that to protect themselves. But most of the time, the denial comes from the idea of not wanting to dwell on that negative thing, right? So that's their best way of handling it. That's their best way of defense. It's like, this information is too painful. It's too much to process. I'm just going to act like it's not there until it seems like it's easier to process. And then as things go, as we know they go in life, it never gets easier to process because you don't look at it. It just doesn't go that way, right? Time you think is going to make it happen, but it doesn't. And I can give you a real good example, and I'm going to go ahead and get a tiny bit personal, but this only because it really makes sense for this conversation. So just like most people, there's nothing special about the story to like a high degree, except for me experiencing it. But there's nothing super special. You think you know everything. 24, I decided I was in this relationship. The relationship was crappy. It was crumbs. But I thought that it was, something to be in. And I'd be lying if I said people around me didn't tell me that a lot of things were whack. But I was still letting it go because, well, I just didn't know any better, right? And, fast forward, tried to make a life out of those crumbs, a relationship, marriage, and all. And of course, when the kids came, it fell apart because it was crumbs. And you can't crumb children. You have to give that your full intention and concentration, right? And so in many ways, I was sabotaged horrifically in order to start a life with the children and actually be successful. But because I am who I am, I made that lemonade. Them lemons meant absolutely nothing to me. I made that lemonade with no problem whatsoever, right? But that's not the issue because I knew I could make the lemonade. I wasn't bothered by that. I'm like, yeah, you can try to sabotage me, but it's never going to work, right? Because I'm just resilient like that. But this is the thing. Sometimes we think that we can skip the healing part and go directly to the I'm over it part, right? And I see it in so many different places and arenas. And I didn't even realize that I was doing that myself, right? So when I always talk about, oh, the years between 32, 39, I always talk about those years and I'm like, they were beautiful. My daughters were young, blah, 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 blah. There's a couple of things I want to explain with that, but that they were young. The reason why that life worked for me so well is because, first of all, I got a degree before I got divorced. And I made sure that I was settled in that way because I didn't want to have a life to where I couldn't, I couldn't support, couldn't provide or whatever. For some reason, the shadow is making me pillows look extra dusty. How about this? Because I don't want to sit on that thing anyway. It was getting on my nerves. Yeah, so where was I? I was making this life. And so something that I had learned how to do right in the middle of my divorce, I was saying how bad I wanted to be a professor, right? And it's because most of the things is, if it's me, it's because I saw some kind of freedom in it. That's the way that I think and the way that I operate. And so I was like, professors look like they're free because I worked in IT for years and I was always helping professors and, fixing their computers and printers and all that kind of stuff. But I was like, they seem super free and I'm smart enough. I can do that. So I was working my way towards doing that on my way out of divorce, right? And so by the time I was gone, I had a master's degree in management information systems and I had the ability to teach. So that is why I was able to be a stay-at-home mom and homeschool my children without a husband. Because a lot of people ask, how was that even possible? What did you do? It was a unique circumstance that was particular to my walk. And that's what I always tell people. So in education, in higher ed, you have a lot of leeway when it comes to children coming to work with you and all that kind of stuff. I don't ever preach that message with people. Because I don't have any experience outside of that unique situation of it working for me. So I don't ever tell people, get a divorce. You can homeschool your kids anyway. You can be a stay-at-home mom anyway. I surely believe that, but I'm never going to encourage anybody to do it because that is a walk. It is a walk, right? It is not easy. It's not for the faint of heart. And so I did it because I felt like that was my best alternative. But as I started doing it, I looked around one day and realized that I was doing really, really good. Like my children had everything they needed. I had taken my life down to where the only thing I had to pay was my mortgage and light bill and like groceries. Like that. Like I'd taken it down to where my life was super small. I didn't even buy gas that much because I was home every day. I was teaching online a lot. And even when I did have to teach classes, I would try to position them around my visitation times when they would be at their other people, right? So that worked out a lot because I was not supposed to be able to homeschool my children as a single mom. And I was not supposed to be able to be a stay-at-home mom as a single mom. Like that is what my ex-husband was stealing from me. And he said it to me that is what I'm taking away from you. You don't get to do that. You're not doing that. So the determination that I had to do that anyway, because I thought my daughters deserved it, was it won, right? But to make all that time work, I had to really, really focus. Like I had to put my head down and just focus on pay the mortgage, pay the light bill, $50 of gas, $200 on groceries. Mortgage, light bill, $50 gas, $200 on groceries. Take the children, Dollar Tree, let them pick out 5 toys. Dollar Tree, whatever, right? Then as times got better, because they did eventually get better, then it was, take the kids to Target, let them pick out a toy. You know what I mean? It turned into that kind of thing. But it was a real concentration. I did not have the luxury of looking up to see that I was doing it all by myself. And I'm not talking about grandparents doing occasional babysitting and all that kind of stuff. No, I'm talking about the financial, physical, emotional, mental needs of that child is 100% on you. I did not have the ability. I didn't have the bandwidth to look. I always think of that story that people who are Christian tell about, I see people tell this who aren't even Christian because I was raised Muslim. But let me tell you, those books are mighty doggone similar. So if you ever get a chance, if you want to peruse a Quran and peruse a Bible, they're not very different at all, because I went to church finally when I was an adult with other people who were Christian. And I experienced it even on a deeper level than I had as a kid because, you can't live without Christianity is just the world, right? Even so, I have a really good insight on both of those worlds. And I remember the lady who I was with, might have been Max's mother-in-law. She was like, do you need I think the pastor told a story about Sodom and Gomorrah or something like that. And she was like, oh, you want me to, we can discuss the passage. And I was like, you mean Lot's wife turn it around into a pillar of salt, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, I already know those stories. Like, I'm like, every story that I heard, I'm like, I already heard this. The people just had like Arabic names. So it's kind of weird to me. You might want to check that stuff out because some people be locked into that religion. But let me tell you, it's got a lot of, it's not as vast as a place as you think, whatever. I feel like I went on a tangent with that. Nonetheless, that story that they tell all the time about Peter walking on water, I think it was Peter, I could be wrong. And the only reason why he fell, or the only reason why he stopped walking is because he looked down at the ground, right? Well, that is a common thing in life. That is how it works, right? We sometimes, are so busy getting things done, we got to put our heads down. And if we for 1 second look outside of our circumstance and start to look like what this person isn't doing, what that person isn't doing, what this person said to me, what this person said to me, we gonna fall apart because we don't have the space to do it. I had the room to homeschool. I had the room to be a stay-at-home mom. I had the room to teach classes. I had the room for that only. And I was going back to school. I mean, because after that, I got another master's degree and a PhD. So I made myself busy. I was like, this is not going to be my life. So, but what I was doing in that process, though, I even wrote a book immediately. So even with the experiences, if you ever look in my catalog or go to Amazon or Google, whatever, is a book called Low Places, right? And it's a fiction book, but some of it's true. I always see people say, what's true, what's not? The true stuff is the stuff that make me look good. If it makes me look bad, then it's fiction. Nonetheless, so that book, I was even rushing that process. I was like, oh, this is all, and I wrote that book like as if I was a woman that had been through that situation, conquered it, and was done with it. I put that book out before I was even like really in my 30s journey, right? And I remember one of my moms saying, she's putting out a book about it. She's not done living it yet. And I was like, that's procrastination. And I do feel that same way too. And I do feel like I wrote that book when it needed to be written. But what I'm saying is that I was like, I am turning this page. I am bigger than this, better than this, and I'm moving on with my life. That was my mindset, right? But what I did not realize is that I had never took the time to actually process what I was doing and actually process the feelings attached to it and to actually process any anger, to process any pain, to process any hurt that was attached to it. Because in those moments, I was just too good to be hurt. I was like, you're a loser. You're not going to make me hurt. I was too good to be hurt. And so I was, for the past weeks, if you follow any of my videos, I've been experiencing this revival of this deep-seated anger. And I'm like, what do you even care? Your children are almost adults. They're not. I mean, but they're like 17 and 15 real soon, right? And I'm like, they're really, we're almost out of this thing. Why is this bothering you so much now? And I think that what happens is, and I'm trying to put this in as quick and concise as possible because some other women or someone else going through this situation may be able to understand it. When you're in those phases where you're raising children in those eras and you're like homeschooling them, everything they're doing and who they are and what they're operating in is your values and your belief system, right? So if gratitude is your way, my children with gratitude, they have gratitude journals they have books full, like when they were under, and I may force them to do it now if they ask me for something. I'm like, fill out a gratitude journal every night. Just do it. They don't want to, but I mean, when they were younger, it was a lot easier. There's so much gratitude. They're so happy. They're always excited about something small. They get a new Lego set. It's like enough to fill up their whole 2 days of the weekend, If having a friend over is all it takes, right? And they're grateful for you. They're appreciative towards you. They're happy to see you. They're always excited. When they become teenagers, that is no longer the case, right? Because it's a natural part of being. It's like a push and pull. They want to be a baby one day, then the next day adults, baby adults. But at the same time, they don't take care of themselves. So it's always a little bit of a more conflict when you're dealing with teenagers. And it's a lot with their mouths. I know because I had one of them mouths on me as a teen. I was smart. And I was going to let you know that I was smart. Because when you're a teen, like that is you're trying to figure out what are you in the world, right? And I watched everybody get these little labels and stuff, right? And I wasn't getting all these other labels. I was getting smart all the time, right? And so I was like, hey, sounds good to me. I'm gonna run with that. Who doesn't want to be smart? I wasn't even tripping about it, right? Because I think all girls, when you're little, you want to be the one that's called it pretty all the time. You want to be the one that everybody thinks is this and that and accomplished and attracted. But as you get older, you realize them girls don't get nothing more than what you get. You don't get nothing more than what they get being sweet. Like, nobody's getting more than what anybody's get. We still got to contend with the same old people out there in the world, right? So nonetheless, none of those things are there anymore. So you really have a moment where you got to sit back and they don't need you as much. And you're just like, okay, so that part is done. But then it's like, if you haven't processed that stuff, if you haven't processed the grief of it not turning out the way that you wanted it to be, it can come hit you all of a sudden. And so I'm sure that that's what I've been experiencing, because I set my intention and I did a whole process of releasing things and all that sort of stuff, right? And then I think after we do these things, sometimes we think, I feel so much lighter. But we got to wait, because that purge that you prayed for and that you asked for, that breakthrough that you asked for and prayed for, that's coming next. And often it's going to feel like the dark night of the soul. It's not going to feel like the rainbows and butterfly feeling that you felt when you did the intentions, ripped the little paper up and was like, I feel so much lighter. It's going to be more than that. It's going to continuously be more than that, right? And so I think one of the things that really, really set in that was sort of like what I didn't want to experience. It made me feel like I flashed back to 15 years ago. I was like, this stuff is over. I even called my mom, and my mom was like, girl, that stuff is over. But I was like, you shouldn't be able to bring kids in this world that you don't take care of. She's like, everybody knows that. I know, but I'm like, this should be an egregious penalty. What is it? You need to be sitting in jail. You know, egregious. It is egregious. It's awful to the children, and it's awful to the people that's supposed to be supporting the children. It's egregious. Anyway, I just wanted there to be much more of an uproar, right? But I mean, if I think about it, my mom didn't raise her kids alone either. So it's kind of an area where we're not really, I was 18 when my parents got a divorce. So, and there was kids, and I don't necessarily think about like, raising them as an adult and getting them on the right track is different than being like a teen mom and but being a part of systems and government assistance. And I'm not taking anything away from anything. What I'm saying is that it's two different circumstances. So while I can say, this is what I'm experiencing, there's not always a direct correlation to explain to someone, this is why I'm outraged. Do you understand this? And they just like, yeah, but isn't it old news? And he just like, nonetheless. So I started processing. Well, I got in my car and something hit me like a ton of bricks. I was sitting there going through the feed on YouTube, and that's normally how this stuff works. And one of the comments that somebody had in something, it said, have you forgiven yourself for your negative past? And I was thinking to myself, like, how does that even work? What does that even mean? Right? So, nonetheless, I clicked on the video and I started listening. And let's just say within the first 10 seconds, I was in tears, bawling, right? And the reason why, it's because not that I was reliving any pain that was happening to me. I realized that I never, ever, ever taken a moment to tell myself that it was okay to be young, dumb, and stupid. Oh. I had to listen and think like, have you ever allowed yourself to be stupid? No, that's not my way. I'm never not smart. That's the way that my mind is. That is the story that I've told myself. So when you put yourself in this unreproachable area, like, I don't need to forgive me. I was doing everything I was supposed to be doing, right? Whatever, right? But it's not forgiving your actions, because we all know, yeah, you act up. You were cutting up to. You were saying rude things. You were participating in the chaos. You just quit first. You're right. You quit first, and the person that quit first can always walk around with their head up high. But you just quit first. You quit the nonsense first, right? But I never ever went on that side of, when people are talking about reparenting yourself, giving yourself the parental nurturing that you didn't get as a kid that you would like to receive now, right? It never occurred to me that I needed to hold space for the 24-year-old who thought she had it all together and who was stupid and who was bamboozled. I'm even holding back the tears now because let me tell you, for some of us and our egos, that is one of the hardest things to admit, that you were stupid and someone took advantage of you in your most vulnerable and stupid place. And it's okay. The me today has to be okay with being stupid 20 years ago. The me today has to be okay with not having self-worth 20 years ago. Not even knowing what value was 20 years ago. Not even having a place to go retrieve it from anybody around me 20 years ago. I had to literally forgive myself for falling short 20 years ago. And it was hard. It was hard. It was hard because we tell ourselves at any given time that we know what we're doing and that these people around us were the ones who caused us this trouble, right? And while a lot of times that may be true, yes, there's nothing I am taking away from any of the emotional, mental, and physical abuse that I experienced in that terrible, awful, traumatic relationship. But that is the word right there, trauma. We don't even, if it didn't happen in our childhoods, we say that it's not trauma. But it is trauma, right? It's like getting into a bad accident when you're like 30 years old. It's still going to traumatize you, right? And I have all of these reflexes related to that era. Like, it was a lot. Like, I literally had to fight for custody for my kids. I literally had my ex-mother-in-law get on the stand and testify that I was a bad mother when my daughter was only 1 year old. She wanted custody. I literally was forced to co-parent with her after that because my ex-husband said that this didn't exist. Classic narcissism. I literally was surrounded by adults who were looking at me in my face and lying to me and talking about me terribly behind my back. I literally got up in the middle of the night and heard my mom and ex-mother-in-law having a conversation talking about how crazy they thought I was, right? And so these things are traumatizing. And we have PTSD from experiencing this stuff. And sometimes we don't even process it. But we want to try to move forward with our lives, right? We want to try to parent our children and give them sound advice and be present for them. And I'm like, no, I don't blame anybody for anything that was happening at that time. I'm cool with everybody today. It means nothing in that sense of it. But what I didn't allow was accepting that I felt betrayed to a large degree. My defense mechanism said, you're not important enough, so you didn't betray me. But that was a lie. They were important. I did depend on them for some type of a social, mental, and emotional love and protection, and I didn't receive it because they didn't have it. None of the adults I was around had it. And I can honestly say, looking back, they were a little bit younger than me right now. They were a little bit younger than what I am right now, right? And so I was expecting all these people, and it didn't happen that way. And at no point did anybody ever come back and say, but you know what? I apologize. I had you wrong. I talked ugly about you, and I shouldn't have done that. I don't need to hear this. But there was no recognition of it. So in my head, I just assumed that I must have just been awful. I must have just been awful. None of that was true. They were just too small to acknowledge their negative behavior. And I've made it a mission in my life to never be that to my daughters, to never ever walk around thinking that My behaviors are so important that I need to act like they didn't exist in order to continue on and being a human being, right? And it just doesn't work that way. And so when I think about it, I'm like, where do I get these flashes of anger and these flashes of? It's because it's a situation that I had to close the door on without ever being treated the way that I felt that I should have been treated. But when that happens is because you didn't feel like you got treated the way that you should have been treated, you don't really close the door on it, right? You don't really close the door. So you need to deal with the PTSD related to having to fight for custody of your own children and everybody around you acting like you shouldn't have custody to some degree. Not really though, but like kind of acting like they're not supporting you. And telling family members things that they went and directly told other family members. Like, I don't do that. If someone tells me something that they are telling me specifically, I'm a still trap. Because it's not my business. I have no desire to share it with other people, right? But if you're a part of my story and I don't like something you did, I'm going to talk about it because it's my story now, right? So we don't necessarily all the time give this the proper attention that it deserves. And then we try to recreate new relationships and connect with new people and go to new places and it doesn't work like that because you're still caught up. And if I can get to my original statement, because I've gone 26 minutes, but whatever, watch it if you don't, skip through it, whatever. If when we get through these situations and we start like pushing forward and we start thinking more deeply about what actually happened and what we actually experienced, my original statement is where I landed. I do not want to be bitter, but I also do not want to be in denial, right? And in order for me not to be in denial, I truly have to process these things. And if I'm angry about it, I can't be around people that's telling me I shouldn't be angry because I'm going to be angry and it's okay that I'm angry. And once I accept that I'm angry about it, then now I can think about, now how do I process this and what do I do with this anger, right? That's how it has to be. So, I think that's all I had to say about that, right? Sometimes we push through life and we don't actually process what we've been through. And sometimes we are traumatized as adults and we feel betrayed, but we have a defense mechanism for it, right? And like I said, my defense mechanism was to say that you weren't important. So since you weren't important to me, you couldn't betray me. But nah, when those people were in my space, they were important. And I did trust them. And I did value the information I shared. I did value honesty. Like when I told my older sister, don't talk to these people because they're going to say everything that you're telling them in the courtroom. And she did it anyway. And it made my case 1,000 times worse. That was traumatizing for me. I never opened up to a family member again about anything that was important ever, even to this day. And I got therapy for that. It's not even important. I don't tell family members anything that I think can travel somewhere else and that I would have a problem with someone knowing. Because that trust in that area for people kind of is gone. Like if I think that it's not going to be something that I want to share and it's not going to stay, it's. And so that didn't happen in my childhood, right? I left my childhood telling everything. I left my childhood in perfect understanding of, you can share business with people if they're your best friends. I always had a little best friend elementary school, one little best friend in middle school, then another best friend all throughout high school. And so you get in this thing where you become little steel traps with each other. Like that's the kind of friends I had. We didn't tell each other like I never thought about them telling other people my business. They never ever did. They never even cared to. And I never told theirs either because I didn't even care to. And so like even to this day, if I'm having a conversation with somebody and I don't even feel like my family, if I told somebody something that they would repeat it. But the fact that those memories and that trauma is stuck there, I just don't even take the chance, right? So it's like we have to understand sometimes that we let these things go by and we let these things happen in our lives, but we didn't truly process them, right? And then if we don't even want to start talking about relationships and like other men and all that, because if you didn't process a very negative relationship that you had with an ex-husband or something along those lines, an ex-partner or something, and you didn't process that, how do you go into new relationships and actually form positive ones when you still have these things that are in your head, right? Because in my head, I'm like, it's only so close you're going to get to me. As far as, there's only so much I'm going to give. Because when I gave everything in that situation, that man went with combat boots. And so I meet people and I have this, don't mess with me. I'm above this. Don't fool with me kind of thing going on, right? I've mastered it. And while it's actually true to my personality, at the same time, it stops you from being able to create actual bonds with people, right? It stops them from being able to be vulnerable with you. They can't be vulnerable with you because they don't feel like you're being completely vulnerable with them. And it's like back and forth. But I do feel like everybody that I've ever been involved with at any given time, in any relationship that I've ever been in, I've always given them the level of vulnerability that I had access to at that time. And like, I'm always trying to show you the true, the clearest, the cleanest, the most, clear version of who I am at any given time. But I will urge people, and I'm always going to share this from now on. Don't walk around without processing that stuff. But I'm saying this almost in jest because you can't really just say when you're going to be ready to process it. You can't really just say when it's going to hit you. Something random happened. And all of a sudden, I wouldn't say I was 24-year-old Jameelah because she really didn't have control over her anger. No. I was 30-year-old Jameelah. And I was like, again? It's like I had PTSD. People don't understand. And it's the smallest thing. It's like, in that relationship, there was nothing concrete. There was no plans ever being made. I couldn't rely even on a text message. I couldn't rely upon anything. I don't even know what I was doing. But I couldn't rely upon no level of regularness, no level of dependency, nothing. And then when the girls come in the room the other morning, it was like, oh, Daddy's here. He's going to pick us up. Like, why? Where? What? For what? Who? Why? What plans? Why is this? And I was just like, fine, because I was tired, whatever. But I felt like I was about to say the word that YouTube don't like. I felt like I was being assaulted again, all over, emotionally assaulted. It felt like someone was just popping in when they felt like it, extracting something important and running out. Look, I can talk about it without even shedding a tear today. I even put on makeup today. So everything gets better. It gets better and better and better and better and better and better and better. We just have to keep on processing. And we have to be okay with knowing we got PTSD for some stuff. Trauma. You know what trauma is? Anytime something small or insignificant can happen that's not related to anything happening in your current life or current situation. And I learned this from sociology, just all of the projects and research that I've done. And that thing it'll flash you back like that instance is still happening that day. That is PTSD. That is trauma. And you have to process it, right? And it doesn't matter who caused it. People think that if you say they caused the trauma, then you're blaming them for life. No, I'm just being honest. Hell, I might have caused you trauma with something. Tell me, please. But I'm probably not going to be able to help you the way that you can help yourself. So I never, ever go back to the person. You need to fix this trauma in me. You made it, and now you need to fix it. It doesn't work like that. They're going to give you more trauma. It doesn't work like that. We're like, I need forgiveness. But you don't. It's going to give you more. It's going to give you more trauma. I promise you. Anyway. And so, yeah, we just got to know that that's the truth of it, right? And so when people tell us things sometimes like, oh, get over it, just move on. They're doing it for the best of us. They're not doing it because they hate us or because they think, we're stupid for having a feeling. No, they're doing it because they don't want to see us suffer. But at the same time, sometimes we do have to suffer before we fly. And that's just a fact of the matter, right? Like I do feel like that was something that was in there that was weighing me down. It could never hit me like that again. I get it now. I'm not trying to run away from the mindset. I'm not trying to run away from the idea that I raised my kids by myself. It's fine, you know? There was a lot of more than anything, there was a lot of shame attached to that because I run in circles where people don't raise their kids by themselves. You know what I mean? I run around with people who, I don't even know what kind of relationships and marriages they have, but they don't leave them. And even if they have, they're married again and they are raising those kids. They are not single. I don't work with single parents. I have one girl I work with who's a single mom, and it's not the world that I run in. So when you say things like that, it can stigmatize you. And it was at a time when I was still caught up with trying to fit in and be a part of this academia and professor groups and all this world, which I'm zero interest in being a specific thing for it now because I realize, whatever. But it's like that was the goal. It was kind of like, and also because, I forget that I'm black sometimes. Not in a bad way. No, I love myself. Don't get me wrong. But I also forget that factors in. I also thought about that too. I'm just like, hey, as a black woman, they're going to be like, she's just a baby mama. Who wants to be called a baby mama? And we know that there's nothing wrong with being a mother who's a single parent and all, but that term is very derogatory. And their first thing I thought is like, they're going to just think that I am haphazard, that I don't make good decisions, and that I'm out here all willy-nilly giving my body to people and making children with them. And I'm like, no, I was all willy-nilly for a long, long time, a 7-year relationship that was terrible and made 2 children by the same person that was terrible, And I'm like, the children are beautiful, but let me tell you, whatever. And I always had to preface. And I'm like, I'm over this, man. I'm over this. I'm over it. And even the people now I do work with, things in corporate and stuff, it's the same situation. There's no single mom parents. They're all married, they're established, they got 401ks, they have generational wealth and income and all this kind of stuff. And I'm just like, dang, that's the thing, right? There's a certain mindset that I didn't even know how to attract when I was younger. So I can't even get mad at myself that I didn't even know what that world, I didn't even know what a man who understood generational wealth looked like. I didn't come from it. There was none surrounding me. And you know what I mean? There was, I give my dad money now. And people are like, oh, you shouldn't say that. Well, it's just the truth, So that generational wealth thing, it missed us, right? And so the fact of the matter is that there was nothing around that was giving me these impressions. So I had to forgive myself for not being smart enough to know these things. And I had to just be okay with the shame that I felt of like, I raised my kids alone. I thought I was better than that. And look at me, I'm still raising my kids alone. I thought I was better than that type of situation. And one thing I learned in life though, real quick, the creator's going to show you what you're not better than real quick, right? Real quick. That was one of my biggest things. I did not want to be a single mom. I did not want to be a baby mama. I saw it over and over again, and it was hard. And when people know that's one of your biggest things, they will give it to you just to spite you. They will give it to you and spite themselves. They will do it to hurt you and not build a relationship with their children because hurting you is more important, right? Well, I'm here to say today, as I show up to you in my goddess attire, that I ain't hurt. Yeah, I was pissed off about it for a while, but that's just life, And the shame attached to it, I feel like I'm filtering through that right now, right? And then last night, I was feeling like a winner. I was like, God damn it, girl. You did it. Like, you raised it. You ain't just raise them. You raised them. You know what I mean? Like, my girls are smart. When I tell you, emotionally intelligent, books intelligent, they are what you want them to be. And would they have been that had they had more access to their dad? Maybe not. So sometimes we get what we're supposed to have, right? But that doesn't mean I couldn't use the money. I could use the money. I could use the money. But that is what I want to come to. A day where I can laugh about this stuff. And it's not like I don't feel like somebody assaulted me and just ran off, right? It's like, dang, you just give me these 2 doggone children. didn't hold no accountability for it, and just skedaddled like I was from the streets. But it doesn't even matter. Because guess what? Even women from the streets don't deserve it. Nobody deserves it. Nobody deserves to have to be the financial, emotional, spiritual, mental, physical support for their children and be the only one for it. But it happens. And it's okay. And I no longer have any shame or any regret or any, I can't say pain, because every other day, I mean, we're going through this, the pain kind of hits me every now and then. Like, why would you not want to take advantage of these beautiful girls? That's my mindset, right? Why would you not want to, and it's deeper than that. And then it's like the children. Then it's one of those things that I can't control and I got to be okay with, right? So anyway, yeah. PTSD is real. Trauma is real. And when that stuff comes up, don't let people just tell you to let it go, because that didn't work. You got to do something else. You have to process that correctly. You have to process it in a way that it doesn't keep reoccurring to you, right? And I'll be honest with you, half of the time I therapize myself. Even in therapy, my daughter was laughing because she says, "You were in therapy just now?" I was like, "I was in a session. This was months ago." And she was like, "Sounds like you were doing the teaching." I'm sorry. Because a lot of times I need a sounding board because the answers are already there. I just don't have access to them from the purview that I'm using. I'm down here. I'm in the depths. I'm in the trenches of the muck. And I don't have access to this knowledge that I know exists because I give it out every other day on this channel here, right? I don't have access to the wisdom because I'm too clouded by the emotions and the nonsense, right? So anyway, I just wanted to share that today. If anybody's struggling with that thing, this is how you become a person who's not in denial, but you're also not bitter. Because I don't want to be, because I've gone to those pages. I don't want to be those women walking around saying all men are like this, all them like this. Yes, it's an overwhelming amount that are a specific way that you're talking about, right? There definitely is, right? But I don't want to give that overwhelming amount my attention. I don't want to give them my peace. I don't want to give them my energy. I don't even watch anything related to negative talk about women and relationships and stuff like that. And I used to consume that stuff a lot because I was always like, "Oh, I'm so awful. I'm such a difficult woman. What am I doing wrong? I'm so awful. I'm such a bad woman. I'm not feminine enough. I'm making men emasculated. I'm too smart. I have to be dumb. I have to not actually be a whole person. I have to act like an object. I have to wear my boobs out. I have to have tight jeans and make my butt stick out so that I can get attention. I have to be all these things and shrink and be really, really, really small. And then maybe a man will like me." So while we don't need to go there, because that is the mindset that people will try to put on you. I've even had family members tell me that, "Oh, this is the last thing, this 43 minutes. Oh, this is going to be one of them long videos. I don't care." I even had family members tell me that, was like, okay, so we were just talking about stuff and what I was going through raising the kids. And I was still in my old house before I sold it. Cause I was like, I gotta get this house. It ain't in my name. I gotta get all this stuff in my name, blah, blah, blah. And he came over one day and he was just like, "You know what a woman's job in this world is?" And I was like, "What is it?" And I was like, "To have babies," because a lot of people like to tell you that. And he was like, "No, to take shit." And I was like, "You really believe that?" He was like, "It's true." And what I realized in my life is that, first of all, that's not true, right? That's why you got so many women running around saying child free and and no husband, because those are the two things that will make a woman feel like she should be taking crap. Those two entities, having kids and having a husband, can really wear a woman down, right? Being single, not so much. I mean, I don't see any bad life single women. Like, they might be lonely, but they should really just get over that, right? But those are the two entities that cause a lot of women the majority of their anguish. And I would argue that it also causes men the majority of their anguish too, because that's just the way life works, right? But my thought was that I don't even want to be in the presence of somebody who thinks that my job is to take shit from the world just because I'm a woman. So like, I don't even want that energy in my space anymore. And what I realize is that allowing that energy in my space, allowing these channels that talk these negative things about women so I can read the comments and be like, that's not true. I mean, not even comment, just read the back and forths and all that. But it's negative energies, negative stuff that's going in. And reading all these things that make me feel like I deserve to have raised my children on my own. I deserve to be, to be working as hard as I did. I deserve to be, pushed out to pasture. You know what I mean? Like that's what those channels were telling me. And even this family member made me feel like I deserved what I got. And I don't believe that. I just don't believe it. I believe that we all make decisions at different times that we think that are best for us. I don't believe there's any more inherent value in anybody because of their gender, their race, or their ethnicity or anything. I think that the world can have ideas about that, but I think that we ourselves, we create our own inherent value. And because we do create our own value, I see people that walk around that have 5 baby daddies and 5 different kids, and they absolutely have no shame. And someone's like, well, they should have shame. And it's like, well, no, they just choosing not to have shame. So my thought process is that if you forgive yourself for the things that you've done, first of all, you can heal that part of you that felt that you needed to be perfect, because that just doesn't exist, right? You can actually heal that part of you, right? Right? Because you want to heal that part of you so you can become anew, so you can be peaceful and you can be free. You want to heal that part of you so you're not like walking around with this thing sitting right here on your shoulder, right? And you want to heal those parts of you and be peaceful and free. You don't want to consume yourself with anything that's going to sit there and tell you that somehow you're not good enough, that somehow and then it's cloaked in the thing of accountability all the time. No, that's self-deprecation. So you can be accountable for things without beating yourself up. You can be accountable for things. You can forgive yourself for things without knocking yourself upside the head. It's very, very easy to do those things, right? So just keep that in mind. Anyway, this is the process. And I don't mind this video being this long because I thought it was important for me to share this. And I got some other work to do, so I need to get to it and get my day kind of going. But nonetheless, I hope you all have a wonderful, wonderful day. And this is how you do it. This is how you do not become bitter, but also you're not in denial. You understand what's out there and what can happen, but you're also not going to sit around and act like that one situation is going to determine how I handle everybody and everything for the whole entire rest of my life. And it's going to have a negative spin on it. It's not going to be positive for you. It's a little bug. Anyway, have a wonderful, wonderful day. And let me know in the comments if you actually make it through this whole video.